I told T.I. he should have kicked that boy when last year. If T.I. would have kicked that boy last year, that boy wouldn't have had to jack him up today. And King is behaving and going on with these kind of actions and inactions and traits and characteristics of a delinquent, criminal-minded boy, then you are up and you're failing as a father, tipster. Clifford?
After King Harris made those bold claims about asking for $100,000, things got tense fast. T.I. allegedly made it clear he was done financially supporting his son, pointing to behavior he saw as out of line and disrespectful. That decision didn't sit quietly at all. King Harris quickly jumped on social media, firing back with statements and accusations that stirred up old family drama again. Now, the situation isn't just private business anymore, it's all out in the open, and people can't stop watching. In this video, we're breaking down this father-son clash over money, power, and respect, and how it keeps getting more intense as of March 3rd, 2026. Ty sat down with Wallow on an episode of his podcast, Expeditiously, and the conversation got real about parenting, money, and what it's like raising kids in a famous household. He didn't hold back at all. While talking about how each of his kids handles money differently, T.I. shared something that instantly grabbed attention. He said his son, King Harris, casually asked him for $100,000 like it's no big deal. That one statement alone hit the internet like a shockwave. The quote spread everywhere almost instantly. A clip from the 2-hour interview was posted by Killer Crew on X, pulling in over 369,000 views, 4,773 likes, and 838 bookmarks. That single line, King asked for $100,000 like it ain't nothing, became the headline people couldn't ignore. Everyone had something to say, and the reactions came pouring in from all sides. Social media wasted no time jumping into the debate, and most of the takes were not in King's favor at all. People questioned his mindset, his attitude, and even his sense of reality. But T.I. didn't stop there, not even close.
Got the best rapping in it. Tell T.I. I got it the best diss song he can have right now. Boy can't find no better diss song. I'm on the set of 50 couldn't activate it. 50 Cent tried to say don't nobody activate T.I. like I do. You're a tippy toe.
He pushed the conversation further by comparing King to his other children, making the contrast even more noticeable. According to him, some of his kids go out of their way to avoid asking for money, trying to stand on their own. Then he pointed out, but then Domani don't want a dime, making the difference hit even harder. He won't accept no money, Deja. She won't accept no money, he explained. And then he doubled down on it. He even brought up his youngest son, Major, saying, he don't want no money. So now you've got T.I. speaking on a public platform, and in real time, basically drawing lines between his own kids. On one side, you've got Domani, Deja, and Major, who, according to their father, refuse financial help and try to stay independent no matter what. On the other side, you've got King, who's being described as someone who can casually call and request six-figure sums like it's nothing at all. That contrast instantly made everything feel heavier and more personal than just a simple interview moment. The comment section from the interview even caught a reaction in real time. Wallow reportedly laughed, clearly caught off guard by how casually a number like that was thrown around. T.I.'s tone came off mixed, like he was both amused and slightly frustrated by his son's bold approach to money. But that energy didn't soften how the public interpreted it at all. From the outside looking in, it still read like a father publicly putting his son under a spotlight, framing him in a way that felt sharp, direct, and impossible to ignore. A lot of people immediately labeled it as a situation where a father was calling out entitlement in real time, and that set off a wave of conversations everywhere. Social media didn't hold back at all. On X, in YouTube comments, and across blogs reposting the clip, people started breaking it down from every angle. The discussion quickly shifted from just family talk to bigger themes like parenting, generational wealth, and how kids raised around fame process money differently. And the reactions were intense, with people split but loud on every side. Some viewers went straight at King, calling him spoiled and out of touch.
You was born into a situation and circumstances and an environment that most kids dream about, mother. You wasn't born into some horrible conditions.
Others questioned how a 21-year-old could feel comfortable asking for that kind of money instead of building his own path first. Then another group blamed the environment entirely, saying, T.I. created this dynamic by raising his children in a world where wealth is normal and constant attention never goes away. And as the debate grew louder, people pointed to King Harris as an example of what can happen when access to money potentially replaces the grind and work ethic expected outside that world. That was the narrative for about 3.5 weeks, and then King stepped in on April 3, 2026. King Harris went on record to finally clear up the entire situation that had been circulating online. What he said immediately shifted how people were looking at the whole story. He explained that the framing was incomplete and needed context that the public never got at first. King made it clear he only goes to his father for investments, not for spending money, not for bills, and not for lifestyle expenses. That detail alone changed the energy around everything being discussed. He goes to T.I. for investment capital. He said, "I only go to him for investments. I don't have to go to the bank, I go to him." That line started getting replayed everywhere because it hits differently when you hear it in full context. This is not the same picture people were reacting to before. It is not about random spending or flashy cash requests. It is about business thinking, planning, and trying to build something real with backing from someone who already has resources. That distinction matters even more when you break it down further. Instead of treating it like asking his father for $100,000 to blow, King is presenting it as structured support for something bigger. He is basically saying he has ideas, he has direction, and he needs capital to move things forward. And instead of going through a bank where he would face collateral interest and long approval processes, he goes to the person closest to him with financial power, the one he believes is supposed to support his growth. That instantly changes how the situation reads. This reframes the entire conversation in a major way.
And when I told T.I. he should have kicked that boy when last year. If T.I. would have kicked that boy last year, that boy wouldn't have had to jack him up today. Now y'all all of a sudden, boy, you disrespecting Tippy. You done got so well. You disrespecting Tiny and Tippy.
If the money is for a business, a brand, a product, or any investment opportunity, then it is no longer a simple handout situation. It starts looking more like a request for backing, or even a family-level investment deal. That also shifts how T.I.'s original comments land, because on the podcast, he never gave that full context. When he told the story to Wallow, he didn't specify what the money was for, and that missing detail became the center of all the misunderstanding that followed. Your son asks you for $100,000 without also saying your son uses that money for investments, and instantly you are shaping a whole narrative in the public eye. Whether T.I. did it on purpose or not, the outcome still landed the same way. King ended up looking entitled in the public conversation, and T.I. came off like a frustrated father who is tired of being treated like an ATM. But now, with King's clarification added into the mix, the entire picture starts shifting in a different direction. There is another way to read all of this. A son who is trying to build something real and sees his father not only as dad, but also as a potential backer for bigger moves. A son who would rather go to someone who knows him personally instead of going to strangers for capital and pitching from scratch. And maybe even deeper than that, a son who feels like the door to that kind of support has been tightened or complicated over time. That becomes the real tension underneath everything being discussed. Because the real story is not just that King asked for money. It is that T.I. put that moment on blast in a public space where context was missing. And once that happened, the message that reached people was incomplete but powerful. It suggested, intentionally or not, that there is friction around King's access to his father's financial support. That detail is what made the situation explode in public conversation. To understand why this hit so hard, you have to understand the Harris family background a little deeper. King is the son of rapper T.I. and R&B singer Tamika Harris, better known as Tiny. He was born in 2004 and grew up inside the world of fame from early on. He also appeared on the VH1 reality series T.I. and Tiny, The Family Hustle, which put his life in front of cameras while he was still growing up. That show matters because it means King was raised not just privately but partially in the public eye, where family moments, struggles, and success were all visible. Over time, King Harris also built his own presence in media and television, adding another layer to his identity beyond just being a celebrity's son. His appearances on reality TV shows have given audiences a direct window into his personal life and his journey through the entertainment world. These moments didn't just entertain people, they also built familiarity and recognition over time. Viewers saw his personality, his attitude, and his natural charisma develop right in front of cameras, which made him stand out as more than just a background figure in a famous family. So when people see a clip of T.I. talking about King asking for $100,000, they are not processing it like a private family disagreement anymore. They are reacting like they are watching another episode in a story they have followed for years. This is a family the public has seen grow up on television, step by step, moment by moment. That long exposure creates a strange effect where viewers feel emotionally invested, like they have some level of connection or insight into what is happening. And because of that, people feel comfortable, even entitled, to comment, judge, and break down every detail. King Harris, born in 2004, is T.Y.'s eldest son with wife Tamika Tiny Harris. He has explored a music career of his own and has recently stepped into fatherhood himself. That detail adds another layer to the situation because it completely shifts how people view his financial expectations. King is no longer a teenager asking his dad for money for small personal wants. He is a 21-year-old man with responsibilities of his own, including being a parent, while also trying to build his identity in music and business. At the same time, he is doing all of this in the shadow of one of the most influential rappers to ever come out of Atlanta. And that shadow is massive. T.I. is not just a rapper. He is a multi-platinum artist, actor, entrepreneur, and a cultural figure who played a key role in shaping Atlanta's trap music movement. His life has included major highs and serious setbacks, including federal prison time, but also long-term success across multiple industries. He has expanded into podcasting, acting, business ventures, and public influence, building a brand that goes far beyond music alone. That legacy creates a blueprint for his children, whether they choose to follow it closely or push directly against it. King has apparently chosen a path that blends both worlds, following parts of his father's legacy while also pushing against it in his own way. King Harris is a name that is starting to carry more weight in music and entertainment circles, and he's been trying to carve out a lane that mixes creative expression with a sharper sense of business thinking. His journey is being shaped by talent, ambition, and the constant pressure of being tied to a very public family name. But the public doesn't always catch that nuance. Instead, his image often gets filtered through loud moments, controversies, and assumptions about entitlement and privilege. Things like past feuds with other public figures stick harder in people's minds than quieter explanations or business intentions. Because of that, it becomes easy for audiences to hear T.I.'s podcast comments and instantly run with one simple narrative, that this is just a spoiled son asking for $100,000 without context or purpose. And once that label forms, people rarely pause to ask what the money is actually meant for or how it is being used in reality. The timing of this $100,000 conversation also matters a lot because it didn't happen in isolation. It came in the middle of ongoing tension and public drama surrounding the Harris family. The roots of that tension stretch back to a failed versus battle involving T1 and 50 Cent, which later spiraled into a much bigger online situation. Things escalated when 50 Cent resurfaced old footage of T.Y. and shared it online, followed by a wave of memes and jokes aimed at the Harris family. That online pressure turned what could have been a contained moment into a full-blown public back and forth. From there, the situation escalated quickly and became messy across social media timelines. The exchanges between the two. Rappers and their circles dominated conversations online, pulling the family deeper into the spotlight. In February, things intensified even more when members of the Harris family, including T.Y.'s and his sons Domini and King, released diss tracks aimed at 50 Cent. And among them, King was especially aggressive in his response, going the hardest and showing he wasn't staying quiet in the middle of the conflict. King Harris is not holding back at all in his ongoing feud with 50 Cent, and things escalated in a way that shocked a lot of people. At one point, he even went as far as digging up documents that trace back to 2009, showing just how deep he was willing to go in this online war. He posted what appeared to be an official FBI report on Instagram, and that alone instantly grabbed attention across social media. The document allegedly referenced how 50 Cent supposedly submitted an anonymous tip connected to the Lowell Lowy Mac Fletcher murder investigation. That move showed King was not just reacting emotionally, but actively bringing old records into the spotlight in a very public and aggressive way. King was clearly willing to cross lines that even his own father seemed hesitant to approach. In another moment tied to the feud, he showed up wearing a shirt featuring 50 Cent's deceased mother, which immediately sparked backlash and intense debate online. That action was framed as him standing firmly in defense of his father, but it also pushed the situation into deeply personal territory. When T.I. was later asked about it, he responded directly and did not sugarcoat his feelings. He pointed at the incident and said, "I said that's enough," making it clear that the shirt crossed a boundary for him. He even referenced seeing the image and immediately deciding it had gone too far. At the same time, T.I. also expressed pride in his son's willingness to step up and defend the family. He acknowledged that both of his sons stood firm in supporting their mother, Tamika "Tiny" Harris, who had also been targeted in now deleted memes circulated by 50 Cent. Despite the controversy, T.I. described the situation as something that showed unity within the family, emphasizing that they were standing together through the conflict. On air, he explained that what stood out to him was the idea that the women and children in their family could see that there were men willing to stand in their corner no matter who the opposition was. That's where the tension really sits in this situation. King is bold enough to enter the fight and defend his father, protect his mother, and challenge one of the most influential and outspoken figures in hip-hop culture head-on. But at the same time, those actions come with consequences, boundaries, and public scrutiny that make the situation far more complicated than just loyalty or respect. The situation around King Harris, Tupperware, and the ongoing pressure from public perception doesn't slow down. It keeps spiraling in new directions every time more context comes out. What started as a simple clip about money has now turned into a full-blown debate about family loyalty, business mindset, and what it really means to grow up inside hip-hop royalty. As the conversations continue online, new angles keep getting added into the mix. Some people now argue that King isn't just reacting emotionally or chasing attention, but instead learning how to navigate a world where every move gets watched, clipped, and judged instantly. In that environment, even private family discussions can turn into global talking points within hours. At the same time, others believe the pressure of being T.I.'s son creates a level of expectation that is hard to understand from the outside. Every statement gets compared, every action gets magnified, and every disagreement gets turned into a headline. That kind of spotlight doesn't just follow you. It shapes how people interpret your intentions before you even explain them. And now, with all the past tension involving public feuds, diss tracks, and social media exchanges still fresh in people's minds, every new development gets pulled into that larger story. Nothing exists in isolation anymore. A single comment about money turns into a conversation about entitlement. A business idea turns into a debate about privilege. A family disagreement turns into public entertainment. But what stands out most in all of this is how quickly narratives can shift. One moment, King is being labeled as irresponsible, and the next moment, he's being seen as someone trying to build independently with limited understanding from the public side. That constant back and forth keeps the situation alive and constantly evolving. And as more voices enter the conversation, the line between truth, perception, and performance gets even harder to separate in real time. And to do it with zero hesitation, King keeps putting himself directly in the line of fire. Publicly, fully aware that every move gets watched, clipped, and replayed across the internet. Then weeks later, his father appears on a podcast and tells the world that King asks him for $100,000 without laying out the full context behind those requests. At the same time, Tiny Harris brushed off 50 Cent's jab during a March 26th interview on The Breakfast Club, staying completely unbothered while the situation around her family continued to heat up online. She made it clear she wasn't letting outside noise shake her energy, even as things escalated in the background. During that same wave of tension, King and Damani stepped forward to defend their mother, showing public support in the middle of one of the most aggressive celebrity feuds of 2026. Both sons had Tiny's back, and that loyalty was acknowledged by the family on different occasions. T.I. recognized it, Tiny acknowledged it, and for a moment it looked like the family was aligned and standing strong together despite the chaos surrounding them. But even with that unity, the money conversation quickly became the detail that shifted public perception of King Harris again, pulling focus away from everything else. That is why King's clarification on April 3rd didn't feel like a simple explanation or casual update. It came across more like a direct response aimed at protecting how people see him. He wasn't just breaking down what the $100,000 was for. He was pushing back against the idea that he is reckless or entitled. In his framing, he was making it clear, "I am not who you think I am." Not a spoiled son asking for handouts, but someone approaching his father with business intentions, looking at investment opportunities, and trying to build something real based on belief in his own ideas. So the question sitting at the center of all this becomes a lot more complicated. Did King Harris actually expose T. Wines for stopping financial support? Or is that just how the internet shaped the narrative? What we do know is that T.I. told the world on his podcast that King asks for $100,000 like it's nothing, and he compared him directly to his other children who take a very different approach. He specifically highlighted his son Domini, who refuses money altogether and chooses independence over relying on his father's wealth. T.I. even seemed to respect that mindset during the conversation, pointing out how Domini's approach stands in contrast to King's more business-driven requests. That comparison didn't just slip out casually. It was said on a public platform, and it carried weight whether intended or not. It shaped a clear picture in the minds of viewers, framing the situation in a very specific way that spread fast across social media. Then King stepped in with his response, making it clear that when he approaches his father, it's not about handouts or lifestyle spending. He explained that he only asks for investment money, not personal cash to blow on. Temporary things. In his words, he treats his father like a financial source in a practical sense, not disrespectfully, but strategically. He has ideas, he has direction, and he looks at his father as someone who can help fund those ideas instead of going through traditional financial systems. Now the question about whether T.I. actually stopped financial support becomes harder to answer clearly. What is visible to the public is that T.I. described King's requests in a way that made them sound excessive, without fully including the business context King later brought forward. That gap in explanation is where most of the confusion and debate comes from. And King's clarification suggests there may be a real disconnect between how both of them interpret the same conversations. From T.Y.'s perspective, he sees a son who asks for large amounts in a way that feels frequent or casual. From King's perspective, he sees a father who should be willing to invest in his future the same way any backer or partner would in a business setting. That difference in interpretation is where the tension really lives, and it explains why the public narrative keeps shifting back and forth. These moments also feed into how people already view King online. His personality, past controversies, and public feuds have made him a polarizing figure, which makes it easy for audiences to assume the worst when they hear clips without context. But being polarizing doesn't automatically mean being incorrect. There's a major difference between asking a parent for spending money and asking a parent to invest in a business idea with long-term potential. The truth, as it often is in situations like this, likely sits somewhere in the middle. T.I. is a father who has clearly watched one of his sons operate differently from the others, and he has expressed frustration about that publicly. Meanwhile, King, who has repeatedly defended his family in public, stepped into conflicts on their behalf, and tried to build his own path under constant comparison to his father, felt the need to speak up and clarify how he views those financial conversations. Whether T.I. has actually cut King off financially is not something either of them has ever fully confirmed outright, but the dynamic between them is still very clear. There is a father who feels like one of his children leans on him too heavily for financial support, and there is a son who insists he is not simply leaning, but actively building something of his own. That clash in perspective is exactly what pushed this entire story into the spotlight and made it spread so fast across the internet. What is undeniable in all of this is that the Harris family lives much of their life in the public eye. From reality TV shows to podcasts, interviews, and social media feuds, their personal moments often become public discussion almost instantly. There is very little separation between private life and public narrative for this family, and that changes everything when money gets involved. Especially when the numbers being discussed reach six figures, the conversation doesn't stay quiet, it explodes. Audiences form strong opinions quickly, and both sides end up having to defend their actions in front of millions of viewers. In the end, King Harris clarified his position, T.I. shared his perspective on the podcast, and the internet did what it always does. It picked sides and amplified the debate. What remains at the center of all of this is a bigger ongoing conversation about generational wealth, parental support, independence, and what it really means to invest in your children's future without misunderstanding intentions along the way. And as this story continues to circulate, one thing is clear, this isn't just about money, it's about perception, trust, and family dynamics playing out on a public stage where every word gets dissected. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and share for more deep dives like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this was about entitlement or investment? Let's talk about it.